Around the 1100s and 1200s, the first real empire of southern Africa began to take shape. It grew out of earlier cultures like Ziwa and Leopard's Kopje, and it pulled them all together into one political and trading powerhouse. This empire controlled the gold-rich regions, managed trade routes, and became the middleman between Africa's interior and the Indian Ocean world. They sent out gold and ivory, and in return imported glass beads, fabrics, and other goods from faraway lands. At the heart of it all was Great Zimbabwe, the capital. By about 1085, the Shona had built their famous stone fortress on the hilltop, what we now call the Acropolis, which gave sweeping views over the surrounding plains. Down in the valley, they built the first great stone enclosures, larger homes, and even developed industries like textiles, proven by the spindle whorls archaeologists have found. What was the name of this empire? Later sources would call it Munhu Mutapa. Tradition later remembered rulers like Mutota and Matope, calling them Mutapa, a title kind of like emperor. Officially, historians usually place these figures in the 1400s, but some scholars argue that the stories about them actually reflect much earlier state-building processes, starting as far back as the 12th and 13th centuries. One early king, Chimubata Matosi, is remembered as ruling not long after the Acropolis was built. Mutota is said to have started out as a prince of Great Zimbabwe, before leading armies north to secure vital resources like salt. His successor, Matope, expanded the empire even more, conquering neighboring groups like the Tavara, Tonga, and Barwe. What really tied the empire together was trade. Swahili merchants came inland from the Indian Ocean, traveling up the Zambezi River, hiring barges, and trading with the Shona in busy marketplaces. Goods like copper, gold, and ivory flowed out, while imports like cloth and beads flowed in. Archaeological sites like Mapungubwe in South Africa and Ingombe Ilede in Zambia show just how wide the empire's influence stretched. Both sites have Zimbabwe-style ruins and graves filled with gold objects, including the famous golden rhinoceros of Mapungubwe and even Chinese porcelain from the 1300s. This suggests that the empire stretched from Zambia in the north all the way down to Johannesburg in the south and east to Mozambique on the Indian Ocean, making it one of the biggest medieval empires in Africa. The influence of the Shona wasn't limited to Zimbabwe either. Many groups across southern Africa, from the Venda and Songa in South Africa and Mozambique to the Kalanga in Botswana, and even communities north of the Zambezi, share cultural and linguistic ties to the Shona. Some traditions even suggest that the Zimba raiders of the 1500s were originally Shona people who moved north. So, long before Europeans showed up in the region, southern Africa already had a powerful, far-reaching empire, known later as the Mutapa, or Mwena Mutapa, Empire, built on gold, trade, and the famous stone cities of the Shona people. Between the 1330s and mid-1400s, Great Zimbabwe was at its peak in terms of wealth and influence. After a major fire, the city was rebuilt with an upgraded style of stonework, walls made of carefully cut stones neatly stacked together. While the ruins look much the same today, back then the place would have been full of houses made from daga, a type of clay, with smooth, polished floors, walkways, and walls. According to historians, the overall effect must have been stunning. Other smaller courts popped up around the region, in places like Chipadze, Lekkerwater, Nunguza, and Ruanga. Like Great Zimbabwe, they used stone architecture and had a mix of imported luxury goods and local products, with cattle still central to the economy. Some historians suggest these were essentially outposts of a growing Zimbabwean kingdom, expanding northwards. Later, under Mutapa Mutota, the political capital shifted further north to Mount Fura, the Mutapa kingdom's base, while Great Zimbabwe remained more of a cultural and religious hub. By the 1600s, Portuguese travelers described the old capital as ruined, though they noted traces of impressive stone buildings. Writers in the 17th and 18th centuries described the old palaces as incredibly lavish: gold-covered beams, ivory chandeliers, fine porcelain dishes decorated with gold, and walls hung with rich cotton tapestries. They compared it to the palaces of great Eastern monarchs. Trade and wealth came largely from gold, The empire used X-shaped gold ingots as currency and imported luxury goods like Chinese porcelain, Persian ceramics, Indian textiles, and glassware. To pay for this, Zimbabwe exported locally made jewelry, ornaments, and worked metals. The scale of gold mining was massive, over 43 million tons of ore mined, yielding around 700 tons of gold, which would be worth more than $500 billion today. Ancient miners worked with such persistence that even modern engineers still follow their methods. Goldsmiths were highly skilled, making delicate beads, chains, wire, gold-plated objects, and even gold-covered statues and weapons. Some artifacts, like golden headrests, have been found at Great Zimbabwe and sites like Mapungubwe, now displayed in museums. But gold wasn't all. They also smelted iron, worked copper and bronze, traded ivory, and made fine pottery with precise geometric designs. Their soapstone bowls were so well crafted that archaeologists compared them to classical Greek pottery. Some bowls were identical in size and shape, showing just how advanced their craftsmanship was. In short, Great Zimbabwe was once a dazzling city, wealthy from trade and mining, full of artistic and architectural achievements that still impress us today.